Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch with Your Lawmaker. I'm Jennifer Harkdietz, the Deputy CEO here at PATH, and I'm really excited to welcome Congressman Ted Lieu to PATH's next installment of Lunch with Your Lawmaker. Congressman Lieu is known for being a vocal proponent of affordable housing and a strong advocate for veterans experiencing homelessness. The Congressman was elected in 2014 and currently serves on the House Judiciary Committee and House Foreign Affairs Committee. Prior to this, he served in the State Senate, State Assembly, and the Torrance City Council. But perhaps the most important of his roles and the one that has most profound impact on him was his service in the United States Air Force. His district covers several communities in the city of LA, as well as a number of cities in the region, including Malibu, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach, among others. While Congress may be on recess, Congressman Lieu is back in the district, and we appreciate you so much spending time with us today. As a constituent personally of the region, I'd love to start off with a few questions for you, and then we'll jump to some questions from our staff and our supporters that'll be led by our Senior Director of Public Policy, Zach Schlegel. So first, there's a lot of conversation about the American Rescue Plan. I'd love for you to tell us some of the different components of that plan that you recently passed in Congress and what this will mean to people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your question, for the introduction. And I want to thank PATH for the tremendous work that the organization does to alleviate homelessness, and really appreciate fighting the good fight every day. That's what you all do. So in terms of answering your question, the American Rescue Plan was designed to do four things. It was to get shots of vaccines into people's arms, kids back into schools, people back into jobs, and cash into pockets. And so it's accomplished those four goals. We do have schools opening up across America with in-person instruction. We're getting every day increasing numbers of people who are getting vaccinated. We had the stimulus checks go out to Americans. And since January 20th, we've created over 4 million jobs. And this specifically to homelessness, the American Rescue Plan had $4.75 billion worth of funding for state and local governments to help provide affordable housing and supportive services to address homelessness. It also had another $5 billion for new Section 8 housing vouchers. And then in terms of renters assistance, we put in $26 billion for emergency renters assistance to help ensure that folks can continue to have a safe place to live during this pandemic. And then we also put in $10 billion to help homeowners who are struggling to afford their housing, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And then we also provided $5 billion to those most in need to help pay for their utility bills.
That's wonderful. I mean, in a time when Americans need it so much, there's some opportunity there for folks to really, get back on their feet. I know another landmark piece of this plan was the introduction of a child tax credit. I was hoping you could share a little bit about what that is and the requirements to receive it. Do you have to apply, or is it automatic? Would love to be able to share with our supporters a little more about that.
So thank you. So the American Rescue Plan also had a tax cut for families with children. And the child tax credit is the largest child tax credit ever, and it's historic relief that's going to really help out a lot of American families. So under this plan, essentially, people are getting direct deposit payments in the middle of the month. And that started a couple months ago. It's going to continue this month, as well as in October, November, and December. As of July 15th, most families with children started to receive payments of approximately $250 or $300 per child without having to take any action. All working families will get the full credit if they make up to $150,000 for a couple, or $112,500 for a family with a single parent. So those are basically the requirements. If folks, for whatever reason, are not getting this tax relief, they should feel free to contact our office or their member of Congress.
Thank you so much for that overview. I mean, it is just amazing. We know how far that can go to really support our families who are in need. Here at PATH, we really believe that housing is a part of infrastructure. And your office has been communicating with our team about a possible multi-trillion-dollar budget reconciliation bill that would invest a significant sums towards housing. Can you explain a little bit about that concept, the process, and maybe even what the timeline might look like?
Sure. I've always supported affordable housing. When I was in the California State Legislature, I was a big proponent of Proposition C that provided funds for affordable housing. And in Congress, I recently joined a number of members of Congress and a letter to President Biden urging substantial affordable housing investments through infrastructure. And so what we're asking for is $70 billion to address the public housing repair backlog, as well as $45 billion from the National Housing Trust Fund per year, of which $26 billion would be reserved for permanent supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. And we also want guaranteeing housing choice vouchers for all eligible Americans, and to convert the funding status from annual appropriations to mandatory spending. So those are some of the provisions that we're fighting for.
Wonderful. Well, we definitely love that carve out for permanent supportive housing. As we all know, homes end homelessness. So I'll pass it over to my colleague now, Zach Schlegel, who also has some questions that have arisen from our staff and supporters.
Thanks again for joining us, Congressman. And we're going to shift gears slightly here. I know Jennifer referenced your military service at the beginning, and I know you've been such a dedicated advocate for veterans. And PATH is one of the leading homeless service providers for veterans experiencing homelessness. Can you share what you're working on to help end homelessness for our veterans?
Thank you, Zach, for that question. So the federal government has traditionally had jurisdiction over veterans who are homeless. And so one of the first bills I got passed in Congress was during the Obama administration. We essentially did a bill that resulted in a whole new master plan for the West Los Angeles VA. At its full build out, it's going to have 1,200 to 1,600 units of housing for veterans who are homeless. In addition, I recently got signed into law another bill. This was signed by President Biden that's going to help the West LA VA basically keep any funds that it wins in these lawsuits and apply that for helping veterans, and it also assists them with some of the leases that they have to do to get these buildings up and running. I'm very pleased we already have some buildings that have been retrofitted and are starting to house homeless veterans. At the same time, just because the federal government has traditionally only dealt with a certain segment of the homeless population doesn't mean that that's just the way it should always be. That's why Senator Feinstein and I recently introduced legislation that would help all the homeless population, and it would provide $750 million annually for local cities and counties for 5 years to provide wraparound services and other services for people who are experiencing homelessness. So those are sort of some of the bills that we're working on.
Yeah, thank you for your advocacy with those. It's really important to see our veterans getting off the street. And sorry, I got kids here at the house during the pandemic, so you may hear them in the background. They're already done with school for the day. So speaking of personal matters, I have two more personal questions. The first one, can you share a particular story or a moment that stuck with you in regards to people experiencing homelessness? What has motivated you to action on this issue?
So that's an interesting question. I remember early on in my career, when I was in the California State Legislature, it sort of became clear to me that anyone can do my job if all you want to do is, for example, pass bills that are written by Walmart or a large corporation. Because what will happen is they'll help draft the bill for you. They'll lobby your colleagues in your house. They'll lobby the committee members. They'll lobby the chair of the committee. They'll help get the bill passed through your house. Then they'll go to their other house and then do the same thing. And then they'll lobby the executive branch, and then they'll get that bill signed into law. So you don't have to do very much. And you can, basically be a legislator. But if you want to help someone, for example, who is homeless, think of how many super PACs exist on the issue of homelessness. How many lobbying firms are out there that talk about homelessness? How many folks spend a whole bunch of money working legislatures trying to get folks to pass bills on homelessness? And it's a very small amount of people. And so my view was that I should be working on issues where maybe if I wasn't there, then maybe that issue wouldn't be worked on, or maybe it wouldn't get done. And so that's one reason I've chosen to work on the issue of homelessness, because my view is if I didn't do it, there's not a lot of other people who are around trying to get this done. And so that's sort of what motivated me, particularly to this issue.
Yeah, I know that I spend some time on Twitter, and I know you're really known for your sense of humor and personality on social media. I see your baby Yoda, aka Grogu, behind you. It's a little unusual for an elected official to showcase their kind of more private persona. How has that sense of humor helped you in your position?
Well, first of all, it's always good to have the force be with you. So that's why I have baby Yoda behind me. In terms of humor, I remember that when I was in high school, I read a literary work by Jonathan Swift called A Modest Proposal. It's one of my favorite literary pieces. It is satire, and as many of you know, he basically wrote a piece about taking children and cooking them for food. And he was basically highlighting the plight of the poor, particularly the children. So I've sort of thought about that over the years, and it's become clear to me that humor and satire can sometimes point out truth in a way that other forms of expression cannot or are not as good at doing. It's also one of the reasons Saturday Night Live continues to keep on running every Saturday night, because through satire, they're also able to point out certain truths in a way that other shows cannot. And so every now and then I will try to use humor or satire in my social media posts. Also, the last 4 years got pretty dark. And I thought if you didn't have some humor, it'd just be too dark all the time. So that's one reason I use humor and satire in some of my posts.
One of the questions we got from our supporters online was just more like trying to get a better understanding of the different programs that you're passing in Congress that will help them, during the pandemic, because there's just so many people that are still suffering, as you well know. I'd just love to get a sense of things that you're like kind of looking forward to on the horizon, things you're working on in Congress now that might address some of the, lingering impacts of the pandemic and help us successfully get out of this pandemic and to stabilize the economy.
So let me touch again on some of the provisions that have already passed. So Congress did pass billions and billions of dollars for renters assistance, and that money has not been used up yet. So if you need help with rent, or if you know someone who needs help with rent, please look into renters assistance. You do have to meet certain income requirements in order to qualify, but that money is still available. In addition, if you have a child under 18, you should be getting the child tax credit, and that should be coming to you in the middle of every month. If that is not happening, please contact our office or a member of Congress. Even though there are income requirements, about 90% of people qualify for that tax cut for families with children. And then there are specific programs for businesses, for venues, for example, that have artists or theaters and so on. And there's still money available for those programs. What we're looking for on the horizon to do this fall, we have a bipartisan infrastructure package that the Senate has passed, and the House, I expect, will also pass that when we come back in September or in early October. It should pass off the House floor, and that will help create a lot of jobs and rebuild our roads, bridges, and highways, as well as invest in broadband everywhere. We're also working on what's known as the Build Back Better bill, and that will have provisions for elder care, for education by providing for free community college, as well as pre-K education for 3 and 4-year-olds. It's also going to have provisions for clean energy, for climate change mitigation, as well as other climate change projects. And it's also going to have a number of provisions to try to strengthen this tax cut for families with children. It is a very large bill that's going to fundamentally help Americans in a very major way, not just to recover from this pandemic, but also on a going forward basis.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Congressman. I think, what you highlighted, right, is obviously PATH is a homeless service provider, but the key also is prevention. And so it's great to see all of the work that you and your colleagues are doing to try to prevent folks from ending up homeless. We are so grateful that you were able to join us today. I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like to share with our staff and our supporters before we close.
I just want to thank everyone at PATH for their amazing and hard work that you do. You truly are helping a lot of people who may not be helped if you did not exist. And so thank you for doing what you do, and look forward to working with all of you as we continue to make Southern California an even better place to live, work, and play.
Well, we're giving you our huge shout out and thanks too, because definitely without electeds in our corner, we could not do this work. So thank you for being here to really share your message and your passion around the issue. And we're really grateful for your partnership. So thanks again, everyone, for joining.
And may the force be with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.